Ever feel like you're totally powerless when you're dealing with a narcissist? Like they always have the upper hand.
Yeah, and can definitely feel that way.
Well, today we're going to deep dive into a video by this negotiation expert. She's also an attorney, Rebecca Zung, and she might just have your secret weapon.
Ooh, I like secret weapons.
Right. So she breaks down like the 7 core fears of narcissists. And let me tell you, once you understand these, you can really start to shift that power dynamic, get it back in your favor.
It is so fascinating how narcissists work. They put on this big show of strength, like total control, but underneath,
Oh, yeah.
There's all this insecurity and these fears. They're like cracks in their armor.
Okay, so let's get into it. Fear number 1, according to Zung, is being ignored or invalidated.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because they crave attention, even if it's bad attention.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's like deeper than just wanting attention. Their whole sense of self-worth is often so fragile, right?
Yeah.
It's like they need that reaction from you almost to exist.
Mm-hmm. They need that validation.
Yes.
Okay, so what do? We give them the attention they crave.
That's exactly what you don't do.
Okay.
Zung suggests a totally different approach, which is silence. Like imagine, right, they send you this crazy dramatic text or email.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't respond. And this can be so powerful because it cuts off their supply.
That validation that they need.
Exactly.
So it's almost like they're trying to pick a fight with you and you're just refusing to step onto the battlefield.
Exactly. Like, nope, not going to play your game.
I bet that's infuriating for them.
Oh, for sure. It drives them crazy. But that frustration, you can use that.
Yeah.
Because it shows them, hey, your old tricks, they don't work on me anymore.
It shifts that power dynamic.
Totally.
Okay, so what about if they try to get a reaction in person? Like they just say something outrageous, to get you going.
You got to do the same thing. Don't get sucked in. Respond, but neutrally.
Right.
You could just say something like, oh, that's an interesting perspective.
Ah, I like that.
And then just change the subject.
So you're acknowledging what they said, but you're not giving them that emotional fuel that they're looking for.
Right. It's like they're fishing for a reaction.
Don't take the bait.
Don't take the bait. Exactly. It's all about taking back control. You're not playing their game anymore.
I love it. Okay, that's fear number 1. What's next?
Okay, so fear number 2 is losing control.
Ooh.
They need it, like oxygen.
They have to be in control.
Yes, they need to be in control of everything, every situation, every person.
Okay, this one feels pretty intuitive. So how do we actually use this fear, to our advantage?
Boundaries, my friend. You got to set firm boundaries.
Okay.
Zia uses this example of like limiting their access to you. So let's say they're constantly blowing up your phone, calls, texts all day long. You set very specific times when you're available.
Got it.
And you stick to them. No exceptions.
So consistency is key here.
Right.
Because they will test those boundaries, for sure.
Oh, yeah, 100%. They are always testing, pushing to see what they can get away with. But if you're consistent, it just eats away at their sense of control. And that can be very unsettling for them. Like their whole power structure starts to crumble.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so fear number 3. This one is a little more, I think, complex. Indifference to their manipulation. We all know narcissists are masters of manipulation.
Oh, the pros.
Guilt trips, gaslighting, they'll even love bomb you.
Oh, yeah.
They use all of it.
Experts at pushing your buttons.
So this is where it gets tricky, right? Because we all have those buttons.
We all have buttons.
Exactly. So how do we counter this? Do we call them out? Like, hey, I see what you're doing.
Zung suggests a different approach. The key is you got to recognize what they're doing and then respond calmly.
Okay.
Without giving them that reaction.
Because that's what they want. They want that big reaction.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say they hit you with, like, the classic guilt trip, something like, after all I've done for you.
Oh, I've heard that one.
How would you respond?
I'd say something like, I appreciate your perspective, but my decision stands.
Oh, I like that.
You're acknowledging what they said, but you're not getting all tangled up in their drama.
It's like they're dangling bait, and you're too smart to take it.
Exactly. And it can be so frustrating for them because they're losing their power over you.
This is great. Okay, so this next fear really surprised me. Self-assured confidence. Wait, so you're telling me narcissists who often act so confident themselves are actually afraid of genuine confidence in other people?
Yeah, it might seem kind of backward, but it's true.
Oh.
Deep down, they often envy people who are truly confident because they're craving that, but often they don't have it.
Okay, so how can we, the listener, leverage this fear to our advantage?
Project confidence. Just in your body language.
Yeah.
Stand up straight, shoulders back, head held high, eye
Like, yeah,
contact.
yeah.
Those little things can be so powerful.
It's like saying, I see through you, but without saying anything.
Exactly. It challenges their whole belief that they can control you.
Awesome. Okay, so we've talked about being ignored, losing control, indifference to their manipulation, and self-assured confidence. What's fear number 5?
Okay, fear number 5. This one is a little closer to home. Seeing you thrive without them. They need you to need them,
Yeah.
to be happy, to be successful.
So what's the counter to this one?
Build your own life,
Yeah.
your own support system, pursue your passions. Be happy and successful independent of them.
I love that. This feels especially important for anyone who's been in a relationship, with a narcissist,
Yeah.
romantic or otherwise, because you got to build that sense of self-reliance to really break free.
Absolutely. It shows them, hey, I don't need you to be happy. I could do this on my own.
That's a powerful message.
Yeah. And it could be really threatening to their ego.
All right, on to number 6. What's next on our list?
This is the narcissist's worst nightmare. Consequences.
Oh, yeah, they hate this.
They hate consequences for their actions.
Yeah.
Because they are masters at dodging responsibility, shifting blame, playing the victim.
Yep.
But accountability, that's their kryptonite.
So how do we make them face those consequences?
Documentation. Write everything down,
Okay.
especially, in legal or professional situations.
Yeah.
Zung suggests really meticulously recording their behavior. Let's say they're trying to sabotage a project at work. Write down every incident, dates, times, witnesses, emails, messages, anything.
So if things escalate, you have proof.
Exactly. You take away their ability to distort the truth or play the victim.
I love it. Okay, and finally, fear number 7, exposure. It seems like it all kind of comes down to this, right?
Totally. It's like the culmination of all those fears.
Because narcissists work so hard to craft this image.
Oh, yeah. It's this carefully constructed persona they present to the world.
But any threat to that image, any little crack in that mask, it terrifies them.
Oh, it's their worst fear. So how can we leverage this one?
Yeah, how do we use it?
Again, documentation is huge. Present the evidence calmly, especially in a professional setting.
So if they try to take credit for your work or spread rumors, you have the receipts.
Exactly. It's like holding up a mirror to their true selves. And that's something they are desperate to avoid.
Because they hate being exposed.
They hate it.
So the key here is it to stay calm, factual.
Yeah. Don't get emotional. Don't argue. Just present the facts and let the truth speak for itself.
You're shining a light on their tactics.
Exactly. And that exposure can be so effective in taking back your power.
Okay, so we've covered all 7 fears that narcissists try so hard to hide. And I don't know about you, but I'm already feeling a little bit more empowered just knowing this stuff. It's like you've given us a decoder ring to understand their behavior.
And I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the point. The more we understand these fears, the better we can handle those tricky relationships.
But I'm guessing there's more to the story, right? I mean, dealing with a narcissist in real life isn't always as simple as ticking off these fears and watching them crumble.
You're right. Real-life narcissists, they're not always so easy to predict.
Yeah.
Some of them are really good at hiding that, their vulnerabilities.
Hmm.
Makes those fears even harder to find.
So what do we look for? Like, what are the signs that what we're doing is working if they're not, having this big meltdown?
Look for changes in their behavior, but maybe not the ones you'd expect. So let's say you start setting those firm boundaries we were talking about, right?
Yeah.
And instead of blowing up, which you might think they would do, they get all agreeable, almost too accommodating.
Oh, wow.
It could be really disarming.
So it's not that their behavior gets better, it's just different.
Right. They're adapting.
Yeah.
They might try to get that control back by suddenly being super charming or playing the victim. You'll hear stuff like, oh, you're so strict with me now. No one understands how hard I'm trying
Oh, my gosh.
to make you feel guilty. So you'll, loosen up those boundaries.
That's so sneaky. It makes you realize, how self-aware you have to be in these situations.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't get sucked back in.
Totally.
Yeah.
Pay attention to how you feel,
Mm-hmm.
Are you anxious around them? Drained? You're walking on eggshells all the time.
Yeah.
That's a sign that, they might be manipulating you, even if it's subtle, not as in your face.
Okay, so this is all making a lot of sense, but it also feels kind of, I don't know, overwhelming.
Yeah.
How do you stay grounded when you're dealing with someone who's constantly trying to, mess with your head?
You got to shift your focus. Instead of getting caught up in their game, trying to figure out what they're going to do next, focus on yourself.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself.
That's a great point. It's like, putting on your own oxygen mask first, right?
Exactly.
You can't help anyone else if you're like gasping for air.
Exactly. So how do you do that?
Yeah, what do you do?
Make time for things you enjoy. Hang out with people who support you, do your hobbies, meditate, anything that helps you feel like centered and calm.
I feel like this is especially important if you can't totally cut off contact with them, if it's a family member or a coworker or someone you have to see regularly.
Oh yeah, for sure. You might not be able to control what they do, but you can control how you respond to it.
And how you take care of yourself.
Exactly. That's where your power is.
Okay, so we've talked about these subtle shifts in their behavior and taking care of ourselves, but I want to go back to those 7 fears for a minute. Which of those tactics from Zung really stood out to you?
The one I find the most powerful is exposing their lies, especially at work. Because a lot of times their reputation, their image, that's how they stay in control.
Yeah.
So Zung suggests, if they're spreading rumors, taking credit for your work, present the evidence, but calmly. Let the facts speak for themselves.
Yes, don't get emotional. Don't get into an argument.
Right. It's like sunlight's the best disinfectant, right? Bring it out into the open. They don't like that.
No, because they like to operate in the shadows. Okay, this has been so insightful, but I'm thinking about our listener who might be, dealing with this in their own life and feeling lost. What's the main thing you want them to take away from all of this?
I think the biggest thing is to remember knowledge is power. Understanding those fears, it gives you a way to recognize and deal with their behavior in a way that protects you.
So it's not about trying to change them.
Right.
Yeah.
No, because that almost never works.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the game they're playing, the patterns, and then using that knowledge to make choices that empower you so you don't feel like a victim anymore.
Yeah, that feeling of empowerment is so important. But I imagine it's a process, right? It takes time.
Absolutely. It's not an overnight thing.
Yeah.
But it's a journey. And it can lead to, way more peace in your life.
Yeah.
And remember, you're not alone. There's therapy, support groups, all kinds of resources to help you.
That's a good point. Not everyone who acts narcissistic has the full-blown disorder, right?
Right. That's really important to remember. We all have moments where we're selfish, right? It's human. The thing is, when does it become a pattern? When is it hurting you or other people? That's when you might need to, get some professional help.
Okay, so we've talked about the 7 fears, those subtle signs, the importance of self-care, and how knowledge can really empower you. But before we wrap up, I want to touch on something Zung really emphasized in the video: documenting their behavior. Why is that so important, especially in legal or professional settings?
Because they are so good at twisting things around and playing the victim. They might say they never did anything, try to make you doubt yourself, or just charm their way out of it.
Oh, yeah, they're good at that.
So having that documentation, it's this is what happened.
Yeah.
Can be super important if you need to protect yourself.
So what kind of things should we be documenting?
Depends on the situation. If it's at work, you might want to keep a log of specific things that happened. Dates, times, who was there, any emails or messages.
And I guess if it's a personal relationship, keeping a journal of their behavior could be helpful, right?
Yeah, noting patterns, how they manipulate you. The key is to stick to the facts. Don't put your opinions in there or get emotional. Just the facts.
And this documentation, it's for you.
Yeah.
It's not about trying to prove something to them or make them change. It's about protecting yourself and seeing the situation clearly.
Exactly. And it can be really validating,
Yeah.
Helps you trust yourself and make good decisions.
And it can also be helpful to share this with someone you trust, right?
Oh, for sure. A friend, family member, therapist. Having that support can make a huge difference.
Yeah, because talking to someone who gets it, it can validate what you're going through and remind you that you're not alone.
Absolutely.
This has been such an amazing deep dive. We went from feeling powerless to understanding their weaknesses and taking back control. It's a whole new way of looking at things.
I agree. And the most important thing for our listeners to remember is you have more power than you think. Knowing their fears is the first step to getting that power back.
It's about recognizing that you have choices.
Right.
You don't have to play their game.
You can set boundaries, protect yourself, create a healthier situation, even if they never change.
I love that. This has been such an empowering conversation. But before we go, what are some resources our listeners could check out if they want to learn more about this?
Oh, there's so much out there. Besides Rebecca Zung's work, I always recommend Dr. Ramani Durvasula. She has some great books. And Shahida Arabi. They both offer Really amazing insights into how narcissists think and like practical strategies you can use.
And there are also those like support groups and online communities, right?
Yes, definitely.
Where people connect with others who get it.
So important.
Yeah.
Because you are not alone in this. And just, talking to other people who've been there, it can be so powerful.
Yeah, it can make you feel less alone because it's easy to think you're the only one who's ever dealt with this. But honestly, narcissistic behavior is more common than you think.
Way more common. And, when you can share those experiences and support each other, that can be really healing.
Like we've been saying, knowledge is power.
Mhm.
And it's not just about like figuring out the narcissist.
Right.
It's about figuring out yourself, your own,
Yeah.
weaknesses and how you can be stronger, how you can protect yourself.
Totally. It's not about, like, outsmarting them.
Yeah.
It's about being the best, strongest version of yourself, no matter what they do.
I love that. Well, this has been such an eye-opening conversation. We've learned about those 7 fears, those sneaky ways they try to control you, and how important it is to take care of yourself and find support. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one last thought. If you're dealing with a narcissist, you are not defined by their behavior. You are stronger than you think.
Beautifully said. They don't get to decide your worth. You have the power to decide how you react, how you protect yourself, how you build a life that makes you happy.
This deep dive has given us the tools, the knowledge to deal with those relationships with more awareness and confidence. And remember, it's okay to ask for help. If you need it, it's actually a sign of strength.
Absolutely. Thanks for being on this journey with us.
And to our listener, keep learning, keep growing. You got this. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.